Hello, John Fisher. I hope you're all doing well and hope you had a good break over Christmas and a good start to the term. We're going to continue with our series looking at inspirational figures, but with a slight change. If we just think about the figures that we've looked at so far, I was trying to pick sort of younger people. The problem with that is a lot of them, because they died young, they usually have quite sad stories. So you may remember Chiara and Pedro both died from cancer, as did Carlo. Sister Claire died in an earthquake. Kendrick was shot dead at school. So all a bit sort of dark, as some people have helpfully pointed out. So just to change it up a bit, we're going to look at some people who didn't die young and had slightly easier lives. So we're going to look at today somebody called Blessed Charles de Foucauld. Apologies to French teachers if I've pronounced that wrongly. And he's somebody who's in the news recently because he's going to be made a saint. He's going to be canonized by Pope Francis in May. So you may hear his name in the next few weeks ahead in the news. So he was born in 1858 in France. He was born to a very noble family, quite rich, a family with a tradition of being soldiers. In fact, they had their own family motto, jamais arrière, I think it's pronounced, which means never behind. So a family of sort of strong people who were involved in the military. However, in March 1864, so when Charles is 6, his mother dies from a miscarriage, and then just 5 months later, his dad dies as well, and he has to be raised by his grandparents, and he's left alone. There's little Charles with his sister, who's 3 years old, and they become orphans. Charles is quite bright, does well academically, he likes reading a lot. And later on, when he's 15, equivalent of year 11, in a philosophy class, thinking about it, he decides to abandon his faith. He doesn't think God that exists, and he becomes an atheist. Despite being clever, he actually gets expelled from school because he's described by his teachers as lazy and undisciplined. So yeah, very interesting kind of upbringing, not a classic one for a saint. Later on, what does he do? So he grows up, his grandfather dies, and then he receives his inheritance, which is quite a substantial amount of money at quite a young age. So he takes on this new philosophy to, in his own words, completely enjoy that which is pleasant to the mind and body. So this is the idea of hedonism, that you just pursue a life that gives you the most pleasure, and that's all you kind of strive for. We'll see where this gets him. He decides to train as a soldier, but he gets bored and he becomes a socialite. So in other words, he becomes a partygoer. And he says, I sleep long, I eat a lot, I think little. That's sort of his life. He goes from party to party, he enjoys food. Eventually he gets involved with a married woman and has an affair. And then later he sort of becomes dissatisfied with his life in the army and he leaves. And then he starts sort of traveling around Africa. He leaves this woman he had an affair with, and he sort of becomes a bit of a lost soul, really, not really knowing what he's doing or what he's about. And he talks about this great sadness and this great feeling of emptiness that he experiences. But then he undergoes a gradual conversion. This is what he writes when he's 20 years old. He's been to parties, he's been rich, he's been traveled. He says this: I found myself in the company of people who were highly intelligent, highly virtuous, and highly Christian. Even though I wasn't a believer, I started going to church. It was the only place where I felt at ease, and I would spend long hours there, repeating this strange prayer: My God, if you exist, allow me to know you. So this gradual conversion in which Charles realizes that something essential is missing from this life of just seeking pleasure and traveling around. He later does end up believing in God, meets a priest, goes to confession, and he just lets everything out, everything that he's done in life, he lets it out. and this changes his whole life and experiences this great change. So much so that he goes from being this rich sort of young party goer to actually entering religious life. He becomes a monk, and he enters one of the strictest orders called the Trappists, who don't eat very much, they don't sleep very much, they don't have much heating, very poor, simple clothes, as you can see here, and a lot of silence, a very austere life. So the complete opposite to what he was living before. In the end, he gets sent to Algeria, where he becomes a hermit in the desert. So he lives by himself. But he actually is very happy there because that's where he had done some travels before, and he loves that life. He decides to live among the Tuareg people who live in the Sahara Desert. And everyone who comes to him, he helps. And he quickly becomes known as somebody of this extraordinary charity and love, that whoever comes to him, whether they're Muslim or not, whether they believe in God or not, he does everything he can to help them. He particularly gets annoyed when he realizes that a large amount of slavery is going on in the area where he lives. And he particularly helps people like this young girl you can see here to escape from a life of slavery because he just sees how it degrades people so much. He comes to love the Tuareg people. He's the first one to write a Tuareg French dictionary and to actually write a grammar of their language. And then he lives a very long life and does a lot of things, but not got much time. So just to say, he then, at the age of 58, and he's some people, this tribal group of raiders come and try to kidnap him, and in the process he ends up being shot and dies in December 1916. So a lot more I could say about his life. He did so much, but just we don't have much time, so just a little potted history of Blessed Charles, whose tomb is left there in Algeria. So this is the tomb of Blessed Charles in Algeria. So as I say, in May, he's going to be canonized. That means that the church recognizes that he's a saint and that he's in heaven and that he prays for us. So if perhaps you, like St. Charles, realize that sometimes you've perhaps not made the best decisions in life and perhaps you feel yourself going a bit astray, he's somebody who changed his life and got it back on the right road, a road that eventually led to him having great happiness and peace. So he's a good one to pray to help us always to make the right decisions, take the right road, so that we can be good people, helping all those around us, and being good sons and daughters of God that we're called to be. Hope you liked his story, and hopefully see you around in school. Take care. God bless.